Welcome to the Way of Healing Water. This is one of the most important training regimens that we have in our lineage because of how much it really does invigorate you. All the aches, all the pains, from whatever styles we practice. Doing the Way of the Healing Waters is really going to let up on a lot of that physical stress and let you focus on development. In our lineage, we have 32 different training pathways that will help us open up and understand not only Bagua, but what is the problem within our own self and what we need to do to get to the next level. So I'm excited to take you guys with me. Let's rise to the top of this mountain here in the water section. So let's work the stance, extending and resting the weight back. Drop my weight, my arms cross over as I turn the hips, then I turn them forward, and then sit my weight back on the quad, most of the weight in the back. And just practice this in repetition until it feels like you're sitting down on your hip flexors. Bend, extend, rock back, keep the butt tucked in so you got those weight on those hip flexors. Okay, let's start off looking at angle. All these movements, if you just take it in your mind and interpret it, you'll be able to understand why it has the meaning that it has. This movement, first we turn with the Bagua, taking the hands over top, bringing the elbows down and the knee up, and extending the hands as the feet extend. One, circling around across the center, cutting off anything that can come in at the bottom or top, and pushing that energy forward. It's very important to remember keeping that other hand under the elbow so you lock off and feet pointing forward. Circling, legs lead the body, body leads the hands. Bring them all down to a nice sink. Put the hand under the elbow and extend forward. Important to remember to always turn with the hip and not ever with the knee. If you feel any stress, you can make the stance higher until you can figure out where your weight should be. If you sink on your hip flexors, there's no way to put pressure on the knee. But this takes a while to flex out, so take your time and go at your own pace. Here from the front, you can see Bagua, circle around, bring that leg around in on the circle and extend. Circular motion from the top, meeting in the middle, and extending forward. Although you're circling, it's very important to circle your body along a straight line. Again, turning, inside, extend. Now you can play with it, doing it a little bit higher, just relaxing and feeling that circle from the dantian and coordinating it so that the legs and hands reach the destination at the same time. So even though the leg leads, you want to do your best to make sure they meet at once. And you'll see how my back leg sometimes will scoot. That's a natural reaction when you're giving power, delivering power. You want to take that space. The legs need to always be limber. You don't want to stand like a statue. We can also do it lower, but take your time first until your body naturally goes lower. This is great exercise for your thighs, creating power for all the other movements in both the Fist of No Extremes and in Bagua. From here, we're just going to do it in place. So I can circle around, put my elbow in front, and extend those hands, swirling my whole body around from the dantian, just back a little, and turn the hip forward. So you should feel in the hips, all of the range from getting closer or farther is directed from the hips, not from the hands. It's important to keep that structure as you swirl around, as you're blocking from both the inside and the outside. Remember that your elbow is your cover and your center, and it's not actually your hand. These are exercises I like to do to make sure I'm not using my hands. I just let my hands float there in the structure as I move my hips from one quad to the next. Now we're just doing the step. I like to break these down in 2 different pieces, sometimes 3, depending on how complicated the move. That way it's simple. The legs, Bagua, pivot step, circle, and step forward. Bagua, inside, step forward. And you see how that little inside circle on the leg that follows can be a sweep, a block, a trip, a grab. Here we go with prime, one of my favorite moves. From here, we pivot so that the hand pushes forward with the elbow, then over top and rocking the body back. So we step 1, push with the upper hand, and then turn the backhand onto the top and pull back. So you start with the backhand shoving forward with the Bagua. Then from there you twist that circle like a small sphere and then twist it back. Weight forward and then back. How you lean, you'll see, depends on what situation you're in, because you can lean down deep or you can lean down just a little bit. For practice purposes, it's always better to do the movement big and then later do the movement small so you can gain all the power. This is where we want to stand if we're going deep. And the hard part really is seeing that swirl, how it goes from horizontal, vertical, and comes back again horizontal. That's the position of the hands. You'll see horizontal as I'm crossing over with my bicep, and I'm going to shove back with that elbow against the target. Then the hands do a small circle forward. And you see there's 2 twists, a twist forward and a twist downward. And then one more twist upward. Don't let the hands get too far apart from each other. Imagine you're holding a small ball or a basketball and letting it roll across your fingertips. This coordinates the upper body and the lower body so that when you're using your dantian, it stays connected, no matter what the position. Watching it reaching forward, dropping my weight, and pulling back. Pay attention to all the little orbits in the body, from the elbow, the shoulder, and on this one especially the wrist. Watch as I reach forward and I sit my weight back, that it's my hip that's pulling my wrist up. So by sitting down, I'm changing the shape of my hands. By reaching forward, I'm also changing the shape. This is Bagua, so it's a turning step, but it's done in a straight line. Now we can add a little power. I don't want you guys really adding a lot of power this week. It's the first time we've seen the movements. We'll wait about 10 days and see where you are. But as you're adding power, you can emphasize the top or the bottom. Now when my master does this movement, he raises the hand a lot higher. But when I use this in combat, I found out that doesn't work for me because I'm so tall. So I reach my hand more forward. So when you're doing the application later, you're going to have to figure out what's best for your height and the technique you want to use. You can make it small and you can make it big. You can make it fast and you can make it slow. Just make it all from the hips. Now we're doing it stationary. This really gives you a chance to feel how the movement works through your hips and your quad. So do it as you inhale and then exhale. Inhale, exhale. Master these swirls from horizontal to vertical to horizontal. From the side, same movement. And I'm using a small ball now because when I get in close, I like to use this movement on the hands. If I was going to use this movement on the head, I would raise it higher. Start to feel it and relax and stop thinking about every detail. Find it and then just flow into it. Looking at the legs again, a small Bagua that pulls us in, and just lean forward. Take your time with this, because if you're doing it right, there's no discomfort. And you can use this as a test to see how your knee is doing, if you're putting it on your hip flexor or if it's shooting down into your knee. So remember, your toes, your knees do not exceed your toes. And if you're doing that, it will sink you right down on your quad. And that will prevent any kind of a knee pain. And if you have old injuries, there's nothing better than the Fist of No Extremes for healing. I used to have lots of different problems, and just doing these motions really opened me up a lot, and I feel younger than I ever have. You can try to raise that leg up higher, or you can raise that leg lower, depending on what you want to train. Now we're looking at foundation. Pretty simple move. Start forward, but then I'm going to face sideways. One hand over the elbow, just like most of these techniques that we've done. Feet come together, pulling the hands in, and then pushes out, pulling the hand in the top. So the hands trade places, palms facing each other. One up, one down. And as the leg pushes from the quad, extend that energy directly into the hand's rotation. Take your time with this. You should feel that small little snap, almost like a magnet pulling you in place when you're doing it right. Keep the hands out away from the body, not straight, but not too close. You want to have range. Use as much range as you can. You shouldn't feel this in the shoulders. Keep the shoulders pressed down, and you should feel this in the back muscles. From the side, you can see the range on the hands, reaching out just about my chin level. For this, it's easy enough that you don't need to break it apart, but you should drill it. So learn this step, stepping in, and as you step out, you're just releasing power. You can do it staying low, you can do it lower, you can do it coming up high. This would all vary depending on what technique you were dealing with. It's always best to do something stationary before you start moving with it. So trade sides and get comfortable moving that rotation with the hips. Like I said, now we do everything gentle. After a few days, we'll see how you guys are doing, and we'll see how much power we can put on. Now we can double up on it so that one step becomes 2 rotations. Very useful for combat. And the final move is structure. Also one of my favorite moves. I've used it many times. So extend out in our stance. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reach forward and pull back, both hands facing downward. Pull up, step with a Bagua, which opens up my hands, and thrust forward. Foot not overextending the knee, or knee not overextending the foot. One more time. Rotate, step, and thrust forward. Pull back, rotate. As the leg turns, it turns the body, which turns the hands. We're turning everything into a straight line, back and forward. The hands are pressed behind each other, both palms facing forward. So as you relax, try to breathe this movement. Try to see if you can do it in a breath. An inhale and an exhale, so you can kind of feel what your body is needed to do. Pulling back, rotating. The elbows blocking and shielding my face from an oncoming attack. So if it's a high strike, I gotta make sure that my elbow is up. Then I rotate, which will also help me trap the arm as well as deliver the blow. Staying low as I drive forward. I push my weight from that leg from back to front, putting it all in the center. As you pull back, you should also make sure that you feel that in your hips. Right? So you see how the elbow circles around to shield that attack, and the foot would be used to trip or block him from running away. Try to make sure you get a nice, good extension, even when you're practicing high. Let all the energy travel from back to front. Now relaxing, what you want to do is kind of find your emphasis. Your emphasis when you're pulling, and your emphasis when you're pushing. Just think about it. You don't have to deliver it so deliberately. So here, it's really good to practice this move on one side. I mean, you can really just do this all day long. Drawing in until you feel it from the stomach, pushing it from the quad in the back to the quad in the front, and releasing through the hands. Now, as far as the shape goes of my hands, right now I'm doing basically both reverse palms shooting forward, But we also have a movement called G, which is kind of to press, and that's where I switch over to a little bit later. You'll see. It really depends on the situation, on what kind of shape you need to enter your opponent's atmosphere. Every movement should be done just like breathing. Breathe back, breathe it forward. And when you're stationary, it's also a great time to practice lowering your stance because you don't have the complication of moving forward. So really flex those flexors and stretch them out by practicing in place. Now see now that I'm kind of doing more of a G where the other hand is vertical. Switching sides, pull back, draw forward, relax and switch sides and pull back. Keep those elbows bent as you take it from the legs to the body. Feel that flow. You see I can turn back a lot like this here, or I can turn back just a little bit. It really depends on the situation, on the incoming force. If the incoming force is strong, you're going to have to turn more. And you're probably going to have to step to control that space. But for letting your body understand the purpose of this movement, stay stationary and rock. And if you get comfortable, in fact, if you want, we can make videos of it, you can start adding just a half step to every little press. You can also use a back step. So here's a step as it is, very simple. A Bagua, step forward, Bagua, step forward. You should always be practicing this because our Baguas put us into position. And that's great work this week, guys. Practice some moves and we will see you next time. So this video is complete.
Video 1 complete.